All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're tackling a topic that hits home for so many of you in governance, risk, and compliance. I mean, have you ever felt like you're being asked to build a fortress, but you've only been given a handful of bricks? If that sounds familiar, this one's for you. We're going to break down a strategic playbook on how to influence your GRC roadmap, even when the funding is, well, tight. Let's get into it. And isn't that the absolute truth? This quote right here, it just perfectly captures the daily reality for GRC professionals. You're out there on the front lines, you're dealing with all these expanding threats and new regulations, but the resources, they just don't keep up. It's a tough spot to be in for sure, but it's one you can definitely conquer.
So let's give this challenge a name, the GRC Manager's Dilemma. It's this constant push and pull between these massive expectations and, these tiny budgets. And even though GRC is so central to a company's survival and integrity, it just rarely gets the same spotlight or the funding as departments like sales or IT. It's kind of seen as just overhead. That is, until something goes wrong.
And your plate just keeps getting fuller, right? Just look at this list. You're juggling compliance across tons of different frameworks, you're monitoring enterprise-wide risks, driving policy, leading training, handling all the audits, and now, on top of all that, you're supposed to integrate these huge new areas like ESG and AI governance. It's a massive, massive job.
And you're expected to do all of it with very little money, a skeleton crew, and often not a lot of face time with the executive team. This right here is the heart of the dilemma. You've got all the responsibility, but you just don't have the resources to match.
So, what's the move? Do you just throw your hands up, keep fighting for a budget increase that might never actually happen? No. The key is to completely shift your strategy.
And that brings us to the big idea of this whole explainer. Your real currency isn't the budget, it's your influence. This is all about a major mindset shift. Stop focusing on what you don't have and start leveraging what you can build. Real, tangible impact and influence across the entire organization.
You know, what's so powerful about this slide is how it reframes everything. The old goal was super simple, just get a bigger budget. But the new goal, it's so much smarter. It's to achieve greater influence. Because with influence, you can actually shape decisions, you can secure resources from other departments, you can get that all-important buy-in, and honestly, that is often way more valuable than just another line item in a spreadsheet. Okay, so how do you actually build this influence? We're about to walk through a 6-part strategic playbook. Think of these as actionable strategies you can literally start using tomorrow to transform your role and your impact.
First things first, you have to understand and map out your value narrative. What does that mean? It means you've got to stop talking about GRC like it exists in a bubble. It's time to define your work in a way that the rest of the business not only gets, but actually starts to care about.
And this quote just nails it. This is the shift. Instead of talking about controls and assessments, you start connecting your work to things that help the business move faster. You're not just managing risk anymore, you're accelerating the business by making it smarter and safer. See, that narrative reframes GRC from a cost center into a true strategic partner.
Our second strategy builds right on top of that. Instead of just doing your own analysis and deciding what's important, you need to prioritize with influence. Look, when you're underfunded, you can't do it all. The trick is to pull your stakeholders into that decision-making process. Make prioritization a shared problem to solve.
And a tool like this GRC prioritization matrix is just perfect for that. It's clear, it's transparent, it's data-driven. When you score your initiatives against things like regulatory urgency or strategic alignment, you're not just the person saying no to projects. You're guiding a conversation about risk-informed trade-offs, and you're making your stakeholders a part of that tough call.
Okay, strategy number 3 is absolutely non-negotiable. You have to speak the language of the business, not compliances. All that technical jargon about ISO 27001 or SOX controls, it's just going to make executives' eyes glaze over. You need to translate what you do into financial and operational outcomes.
This is the perfect example. Instead of saying, we need to implement these specific controls, you frame it in terms of what it means for the business. Saying, this project can prevent a $1.5 million loss from a ransomware attack, now you've got their attention. You've just connected your work directly to the bottom line. All right, let's move on to strategy 4. And remember this, GRC is not a solo sport. The most influential leaders out there are master collaborators. You have to get out there and actively build strategic allies across the business, because you simply cannot succeed stuck in your own silo.
And here are your key allies: IT, finance, legal,
operations, and internal audit. These aren't just departments you send emails to. They're your partners. Here's a pro tip from the source material. Try co-creating roadmaps with them. When they help you shape the priorities, they become champions for your work. They might even find some resources for you that you never knew existed.
Our fifth strategy is all about being practical and showing value fast. It's called minimum viable GRC. Basically, when you can't do everything perfectly, just do the most important parts well enough to make a real difference and prove your value.
So what exactly is minimum viable GRC? Well, it's an approach that's laser-focused on delivering just enough to hit those key goals, meet the bare minimum for regulations, tackle the absolute worst risks, and show tangible progress. It's all about racking up those small, incremental wins that build momentum. And this cycle really illustrates it perfectly. You start by just meeting the minimum thresholds. Boom, you reduced immediate risk. Then you show that progress to leadership, which in turn helps you justify a little more investment for the next phase. It's a really smart, iterative way to build up your program from the ground up.
And our final strategy ties it all together. You have to own the GRC roadmap narrative. Don't let other people define your story for you. You need to proactively and continuously communicate what you're doing, why it's so important, and, this is critical, what the risks are if it gets ignored.
Because when you successfully own that narrative, the payoff is huge. It's a complete transformation. You go from being seen as a cost center to becoming a trusted, strategic advisor to the business.
I love this quote because it's just so direct and so true. Without a communication plan, your roadmap is just a wish list. Owning the narrative means using those roadmap decks, those risk dashboards, and those quarterly updates to keep your story front and center, always.
So, the main takeaway is this. Your impact is not defined by the size of your budget. By becoming a strategic influencer, someone who connects GRC to real business outcomes, your ability to protect and enable the organization grows exponentially. And we'll end on this thought. In GRC, the most valuable asset you have isn't money. It's the trust you build by guiding the business through risk with clarity and purpose. So the real question is, how will you build yours?